Welcome. This is Katie Suresh welcoming you on behalf of ActionAid, CISLS, and Rosa Luxemberg Stiftung to this webinar, which is Visibilizing the Invisible, the contribution of sanitation workers and ensuring dignity of work during the pandemic. This is part of a lecture series that ActionAid has been doing, which is a run-up to our flagship event called the Urban Action School, which aims at bringing together activists and practitioners working on a range of issues related to labor rights, entrepreneurship, urban poverty, livelihood, and urbanization. The Urban Action School tries to establish over time knowledge in various disciplines by creating a forum for cross-sectoral learning. And it also facilitates cross-pollination of ideas and experiences between different activists and practitioners, especially in the urban area. The organizers of today's webinar are ActionAid, Centre for Informal Sector and Labour Studies, JNU. Let me introduce ActionAid and the Centre. ActionAid is a part of a global federation with a presence in over 40 countries. It envisions a world without poverty, patriarchy, and injustice, wherein every person enjoys a dignified life. It works towards strengthening human rights and ensuring humanitarian response during disasters by encouraging both critical debates and on-field praxis. CiRiC is a policy advocacy hub set up by ActionAid, focusing on urban issues from the viewpoint of the common citizens whose voices and interests should take priority in policies governing the city. We are partnered in the series of lectures by the Center for Informal Sector and Labour Studies, represented here by Professor Archana Prasad. Center for Informal Sector and Labour Studies is one of the newly created centers in JNU with a focus on teaching and research on labor processes and working conditions in the unorganized sector in the contemporary world, particularly the developing countries. The objective of this center is necessarily interdisciplinary, since any study of the life of working people must draw upon a whole range of disciplines as history, economics, political studies, sociology, amongst others. We are supported in this endeavor by Rosa Luxemberg Stiftung-South Asia. RLS is committed to the idea of democratic socialism and is dedicated to international cooperation and solidarity. RLS offers civic and political education and conducts projects for social emancipation. RLS South Asia specifically works with local partnerships focusing on the area of labor, agriculture, and social transformations. Today we have an eminent panel of speakers, also an eminent moderator. I would introduce all of them very briefly because the moderator will introduce them more fully. Professor Sukhdev Thorat, an eminent economist and a Padma Shri awardee. Professor Thorat was the founder of the Indian Institute of Dalit Studies, also the chairman of UGC ICSSR, apart from immense contribution to issues related to the marginalized groups and agriculture growth. We have Biswara Wilson, who is the recipient of the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award in 2016 for his efforts to reclaim the dignity of Dalits and the liberation of manual scavengers. We have Nalini Shekhar, the executive director and the co-founder of Hasibullah, which is a social impact organization that works with waste pickers located in Bangalore. We have Mr. Rais Mohammed, who is the founder of Dalit Camera, which is a voluntary organization that captures narratives, songs, talks, and videos and discussions around the Dalit issue. A PhD holder from the English and Foreign Languages University. Mr. Mohammed intends to form a union in Tamil Nadu that addresses the issue of labor and the need for self-respect while arguing for economic uplift. Before I introduce the moderator who will take forward the proceedings of this webinar, a few comments for each one of us who are participating in this webinar. Once again, a welcome to this webinar. My colleagues would be trying to keep your chat boxes alive and active, also with articles and information about the organizations as panelists speak. Participants, do note that your microphones and your camera has been turned off. It's only the speakers, the moderator, and members of the host team who have their cameras on and their mics on at this stage. We'll take up questions at the end of this session. Kindly type in your questions in the Q&A section, which is there on your screen. Indicate to which speaker your question is directed to, and do also indicate whether it's a general comment or a specific question for a specific speaker. That will just help, clarifying the questions being funneled to the right person. With no further ado, let me introduce Professor Archana Prasad, who's currently a professor at the Center for Informal Sector and Labor Studies, JNU. She was also the chairperson for the center between 2014 and 16. She specializes in research on the contemporary history of Adivasi livelihoods, labor and resistance, women and labor, environment and labor history. She's also been helping many grassroots organizations in their work with home-based workers. She's an associate editor of the Agrarian South, a journal of political economy, which is tricontinental journal published by Sage Publications. Her books include Against Ecological Romanticism and the Making of the Tribal Identity, Environmentalism and the Left, The Red Flag of the Wadlis, A History of Ongoing Struggle, and The Struggling for Nation Building, A History of All India Bank Officers Association, which was also co-authored with Sarika Chowdhury. We have an extremely eminent group of people who are going to speak on this issue. So let me now hand it over to Professor Archana Prasad.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you, ActionAid, CiRiC, for inviting me to moderate this session. Though I think we are also the hosts of this session because we are the co-organizers of this lecture series. In fact, ActionAid and Centre have had quite a fruitful collaboration for quite some time, and we are happy to be part of this series. Now, the topic today is, I feel it's really a very important and interesting topic. And the topic today is visibilizing the invisible contribution of sanitation workers during the pandemic. And I think that this topic needs to be really focused on and discussed because because the sanitation workers are really the frontline workers who have generally been ignored in the public discourse within the pandemic. When you talk about Corona warriors, you basically focus on nurses, doctors, even now the policemen, but hardly anybody talks about the sanitation workers whose plight and whose working conditions, as this eminent panel will tell you, has been quite bad for many, many decades. And we have a lot of people here who have been fighting for their rights and organizing them. So I don't really want to stand between them and you. And I'd like to sort of invite them to make the observations. I think the format that we are following is that the panelists will make opening remarks of about 10 to 12 minutes each, after which They can also cross-question each other and take questions for another 30 to 40 minutes. And thereafter, we will ask them to make their closing remarks. So at the request of Professor Thorat, I'm asking Biswara Wilson to speak first. And as you all know, Biswara Wilson is a very eminent activist and a fighter for the rights of sanitation workers. And he's the founder of the Safai Karamchari Andolan. In fact, I personally, after listening to him so many times and sort of collaborating with him on various platforms, I've learned a lot from him myself. And he's also the winner of the Ramon Magsaysay Award. So I'd like to ask Biswara to start the ball rolling and make his initial remarks on this topic. I'm sure you have a lot to say, but we'd like you to confine yourself to about 10 to 12 minutes, and then maybe you can come back. Thank you. Thank you, Biswara.
Thank you, Archana ji. It is happy to see after pandemic we are able to see only through Zoom. We are unable to meet each other, and this is the time actually everybody must meet and do the many things. But this virus has made this kind of. And of course, Professor Thorat ji is there, and he will take this is a very logical end definitely. And my friend Rais Mohammed is there. And he is working very hard in the Tamil Nadu and many places. And of course, Mr. K.T. Suresh has called me, and this is a great opportunity to ActionAid team and all must be taking this forward, and they have the good network. I just we had discussed the same problem in many times in many forums. Even whatever it is, this invisible and visibilizing, this has a very problematic words actually. The problem is we doesn't like to see some faces, and we never recognize their any kind of a contributions, and we want sometimes a point of time we want to over recognize certain things. So both are actually very difficult in the society where there is a stigma and social discrimination. When there is an untouchability and the practices are there, if the untouchable is doing some work and which they are not supposed to do, if you over recognize that, means what? So you say that you are cleaning so well, so you keep on cleaning for a whole lifetime this only. So I will glorify you. So this is a very problematic when you think about the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's very important ideology. He said that you have to come out of certain things. So the manual scavenging or the scavenging, drain cleaning or sweeping and all looked so down because of the caste system. When it is linked with the caste, without recognizing the involvement of the caste in this, and we want to praise, and we want to pull barsao. What is this? So you are making a mockery of the actually the people who are never paid the salaries on time, never paid any kind of a PPE kit or whatever. PPE kya hai? Including the mask, and you are coming and showering the flowers, and you are saying that we recognize. What you recognize? You recognize the discrimination, you are recognize the stigma, you are again praising the untouchability practice. So how do we break the chain between the caste and the occupation, which has made them actually the slaves like untouchables or the Safai Karmacharis in this country? This we have to say. Instead of that, we say that recognize them and give them a front warrior or give them a Bharat Ratna. If somebody gives honor some Safai Karmachari as a Bharat Ratna to clean the garbage so well, so which what? So this is what we have to look from that lens. Then second important thing which I want to just say very openly is this present governments, mostly the state governments or the central government, it is an anti-labor laws they are actually doing, which means the laws which has protected the rights, minimum rights of this marginalized and the labor. Who are the labor? The labor in the sense, we can think about the majority are the Dalits, Adivasis and the OBCs only. So such people had a protection with the laws, with the great difficulty, with the great movements. Many people struggled and given the life to get the law. So those laws they have reverted back and they have taken everything. And they say that there is no point even to follow the 8 hours. Already Safai Karmacharis, sanitation workers, the women are working in the odd hours. So women are not permitted to work in the odd hours. That is according to the labor law. But in the many cities, now you can see that morning 4 o'clock they started sweeping and a night shift they are making and they are not supposed to do all those things. So now they have scratched all those laws. So now they can do exploitation as much as, see, before also exploitation happened, but at least some voices can demand, this is a galat hai, this is a wrong, we are working against the labor law. But now they justified that exploitation. This is the most important, we have to take this as a forward. Justified the exploitation and they made that as a law now, new law. So the social order, whatever is there, where the exploitation is happening, that justification, which means they really taking back the actually dignity, self-respect and the voices of the marginalized to the very ancient back. So as Baba Saheb Ambedkar said, we have to take anything to forward. Instead of taking forward, we are taking back many things, and particularly when you talk about the labor, it is nothing but the Dalits, Adivasis and the marginalized. So my submission here is the salaries which they are not paid, they must pay on time and there should not be any further delay. And there are the many people died during the corona, and the corona is such a disease, everybody is closing the doors and sitting. During that time when they are coming and cleaning, and we are not giving any proper gear or the protective, personal protective equipments, due to that, almost like the data is coming, 200 Safai Karmacharis across the country died around, the rough number. So such people, whoever died, and their families, government take very stringent steps to protect, and they must reinstate it in the non-scavenging, non-sweeping, dignified occupations, thereby the community move forward. And the people who died, for that they have to provide the compensation, and the amount is not important, but they must acknowledge very clearly what they have done the wrong. We are not here demanding you give the money, you give the safety gear, but the government first, they must come and they must apologize the community that what the blunder they have done during the COVID, not provided even a drinking water. So we have to take small things are also important when it is coming to the dignity, and the women coming and working in the sanitation sector know any kind of a toilet facilities, how much they struggle. You can't even explain that. So all such things, why the governments are not thoroughly thinking, you are not going to stop tomorrow. It is going to continue. So during that time, what are the steps we have to give? The government demands 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that this session will bring such kind of recommendations where the government must follow that. Otherwise, we have to call our people, organize them very well, and make this as a big movement in this country to have a next social transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Biswara. You made some really, as you always do, some really important points about caste and labor and the way it informs our sort of everyday thinking, and how we need to also declass ourselves into basically not justifying such an occupation. Now I'd like to ask Rais Mohammed, who's the founder of Dalit Camera, an organization which basically records the videos and the narratives Dalits, and it brings forth to us many voices and facts. In fact, I've been watching some of his stuff and I found it really very telling and enlightening for myself also. Reis basically finished his PhD from FU and he was an associate assistant professor at the University of Madras before he gave up his job and started the Dalit camera. And he has done quite a lot of work on the relationship between the caste system and labor and its politics. So I asked now Reis to make his introductory remarks, please.
Hi, good evening all of you, and thank you for inviting me, and also thanks for the ActionAid and also the Centre for Jain Institutions for organizing this session. And I also personally wish Biswara Wilson, Anna, good evening, and Torat, good evening. So yeah. When I was asked to speak about my opening remark, and when Biswara Wilson Anna was speaking, I thought I will just speak about for a few minutes about why I had to leave my academics and start this self-respect trade union, a trade union which is called at Nilgiris, All India Sanitation Workers Self-Respect Trade Union. And in my knowledge, I think this is the first trade union which would speak about the self-respect. The reason for this is it's due to COVID. I'm at home. Otherwise, I would be in South Africa, in University of Western Cape, doing my postdoc. But the COVID also changed my situation here. So I had to. I have been since my school days. Not school days, but since my college days, university days, I used to study the scavenging and sanitation workers and sweepers. Since my mother and father come from there, and my community, I also come from that particular community. So it became very personal to me, and learned caste after going to my university. Otherwise, I was preparing for civils. And it is then later Damsa English and Foreign Languages University as well, CIFL, taught me that your community situation is not being recognized even in your own state. And it's important that you look your community and study your community because you should not be unaware of the situation your community faces day in and day out. So I think getting into that and getting into my father and mother's work changed my life. And Biswara Wilson Anna I've been following Anna for quite a long time, and we have very personal relation. So my approach to scavenging is sanitation issues, ideological war, I would say. The reason is, so I'll give you an example why I had to start this trade union as a self-respect trade union. So in my area, I was talking to Periyarists and Ambedkarites. And I was telling them that you have to look the sanitation worker as a self-respect worker. And we can differ in opinion. Some people would say that no, you no need to see it as a self-respect of a sanitation worker, but that is a debatable question. But many of them, all of them, even yesterday when I was discussing, there are many trade unions in my area, Dalit trade union, because the left trade union have not looked into this issue. If they would have looked into this issue, I don't think Biswara would have come out. I would have resigned from my work. And I don't think many Dalit movement would have lost their lives because of their failure in looking into caste in the labor issue. So therefore, I told them that, see, there is a very important issue that none of us are addressing, especially the manual scavenging and the people dying in the manhole. So then they said that no, Dalits, why should they go and die? I would say that if they are dying, let them die, because such kind of Dalit we don't want. I don't think I don't think that we need a Dalit who continuously, generation after generation, works as a sanitation worker in a office or in a municipality. So that shocked me. That shocked me terribly. And then the second thing, what happened is, I live in a sanitation colony. Adjacent to that, I live. So sanitation colony, there was an issue. They had a public toilets, and one particular toilet was locked. And the person, he's my friend. I went and told him politely, requesting him that why have you closed the toilet? Because you have only 4 toilets and there are 15 houses. So men and women use the same numbers of toilets, 5 toilets. So don't close it, keep it open. So he said, no, these people do not know how to use the toilet. So that shocked me very much. And he's a sanitation worker. So the idea of inhuman, or idea of filthy, that idea is there among Dalits also. And then in Tamil Nadu, there is one more issue, is that it is there across India. Every day morning, sanitation workers, they have a roll call. That roll call happens outside the office. I live in a Nilgiri district, Ooty. In this district, there is rain, there is a cold weather, there is a big office, but they don't allow them into the office. They ask them to stand outside, and then they take a roll call. So I took this issue and I said that this is a dignity. I don't think dignity would be a word which puts that heavy social trauma they suffered. I think the self-respect. I said there is a need for them to be treated equally. So therefore, you should not keep them outside and take the roll call. And they take even when there is a rain. So the Dalit movement was telling, Dalits actually, because my communication is Dalit, because I feel that non-Dalits would be very difficult for them to even understand what my language is. So I told them that, see, it's very important that we treat them equal. He said, he was a very popular activist, and now he's another different movement. He said, no, how can you ask them to be treated equal? What is his stature and what is his stature? And then I contacted all the organizations in Tamil Nadu. And I told all of them that, see, this is a self-respect issue. You have to take up the labor issue. They are standing outside. They have to be treated equally. And surprisingly, this became this enlightenment of being treated unequally when they stand outside came from my father. He enlightened me. He told, I have never sat once in my life in front of a sanitation inspector or an EO, because I was sitting and talking, and he came home and he said, it's surprising, oh, I'm very happy that you sat and spoke. That really shocked me a lot. And then I inquired across my area. All of them said, no, we have never sat. And then, okay, sitting is fine. You can't even stand inside the office for a roll call. They said, no, they have to stand outside. See, Dalits will be kept always outside. Toilets would be kept outside. They will never be allowed into the temple. So Dalits are even a colony as an outsider. Everywhere they're an outside. So it is an ideological fight. And then I told them, in India is the only country which has never, ever framed a rule for a sanitation worker. They have framed rules in Swachh Bharat. The complete rule is about how you segregate the waste, how one should treat the waste, but not the human being. And in Tamil Nadu government law and in central law also, 1976, if I mentioned the year correctly, even that year, the rule was there which said sanitation worker does not take permission before taking leave. He or she can be imprisoned, 30 days imprisonment. So it was seen as a criminal offense, not coming to the work. And there is a lot of writings and all. Basically, what I'm trying to hint here is Dalits. Sanitation issue is not a problem of non-Dalits alone. Sanitation issue is a problem of Dalits also. There was one Dalit movement in Tamil Nadu who said, if we see any sanitation worker gets into a drainage, we will whip him. What is this nonsense Dalit movement is doing? And in Tamil Nadu, we have this great Dalit movement. What have they done when the manual scavenging people were dying? They take atrocities. Dalit movement considers atrocities what happens on the field, on the house, on the villages, not on the sanitation, not on the manhole. So I asked them, this is a purely an ideological war, and sanitation workers are kept in the whims and fancies of the sanitation inspectors. He can frame whatever rule he says, that is the rule. So they are government servants. Then I said that we need to address this issue. They said, no, we are not going to enter into the sanitation work as a trade union. If you remember, no trade unions in India. You can say Safai Karmachari, the CPM, some other organizations are there. Let us take all political parties. In Tamil Nadu, there are many political parties. No political party has a trade union for sanitation workers. Sanitation workers are never ever even being recognized by these people. And what happens with this Dalit movement? Dalit movement also never recognizes the sanitation worker as a self-respect. They would say that you leave the work and come out. I mean to say, why should I leave the work? This work is there across the world. And the problem with this Indian work is it has caste in it. So for example, if caste and labor is intermingled in India. For example, a Brahmin is a priest. Now Indians, what we are asking, we are not asking the Brahmins to come out of the temple. We are asking, we also need to go to the temple. Basically, they want to break the caste in different angle there. So we need to break the caste in the sanitation worker. So we have to study the caste, how it operates. And I also feel, and for example, if anybody wants to study caste and to address the sanitation workers, then the Mala-Madhya conflict has to be addressed. Dalits cannot reject Mala-Madhya conflict. And one last point I would like to say, and I would like to, I think I'm crossing my time. Let us take this Gujarat study. In Gujarat, there was a study by Martin McQuan and Kennedy Foundation. It said the caste discrimination among Dalits, there are 99 different kinds. And intercaste marriages does not happen 98%. 97% it happens. 97% doesn't happen among the non-Dalits. 99% doesn't happen among Dalits. And in Tamil Nadu, Dalits construct, like the Parayar community, constructs a wall saying that these Dalits cannot enter into my area because they are filthy. So caste is not a problem of Dalit versus non-Dalit. Caste is a problem of all of us. And Dalits do not recognize this. And if I speak this language, I get away. I get marginalized in this movement, but I don't. But that's fine because this is the same community which did not even recognize Ambedkar when he was alive. And Ambedkar, what did he say? He said in all his life, he said, annihilation of caste text he wrote. Just last point, annihilation of caste. Dalits are holding up to this annihilation of caste. He wrote for whom? He wrote the text for the Hindu audience, not for Dalits. For Dalits, he said that denounce Hinduism. But how many Dalits are ready to denounce Hinduism right now? And the many Dalits are saying that I'm a Hindu. I'm practicing a different religion. So the problem here is you cannot be a Hindu and you cannot be a Hindu Dalit. And you cannot expect a Brahmin to teach equally because that is the philosophy of Brahmins. The Brahminism, what we speak about, the caste system. So if you want to address the sanitation issue, you have to address the caste issue. If you want to address the caste issue, you have to follow Baba Saheb Ambedkar and denounce Hinduism and come out of it. Until then, you can never ever see sanitation as a respectable work. Not respectable you can leave, or a universal work, how it is considered. Sanitation work in India would be considered as a filthy work or a cheap labor and filthy people, and you will never get salary, you will never be treated equally. You are like, even if you die, there are no people to just take your body and leave it. And last one point, it is not about the sanitation worker alone being treated unequally. All Dalits are treated unequally, but we are forgetting to recognize that. So sanitation is a caste problem, is part of a larger caste problem. Until we address the larger caste problem, we are not going to address the sanitation issue. And for us, it is a self-respect issue. And that is one reason and the sole reason for us here in Tamil Nadu to start this trade union, to tell the Dalit movement and to tell all of them, see, sanitation is a self-respect of movement, self-respect. Labor needs to have self-respect. And there is caste and labor in it. We have to remove caste from it. So that is my introduction speech. Thank you.
So thank you, Reis. In fact, I think you've really brought out the whole question of dignity of labor, and it's linked with caste very well in your remarks. And this is an issue that I think needs to be sort of addressed much more frontally than it has been addressed so far. Now, I'd like to ask Professor Thorat. Actually, Professor Thorat does not need much introduction. Professor Thorat was a teacher at JNU when I was a student at JNU. And he's Professor Emeritus at JNU right now from the Center for Studies in Regional Development. He has been the former chairperson of UGC, and he brought about many positive changes through that whole process. Even the centers for studies in social exclusion and discrimination were started at the time when he was the chairperson of the UGC. His work on social exclusion, caste and labor is very, very well known and needs not much introduction. And he was also awarded the Padma Shri for his contribution. So I hand over to Professor Thorat to make his remarks.
I think Biswara Wilson and Rais Mohammed have really brought out the issues of sanitation worker, and both have said that there is a strong interconnection between the caste and the problem of sanitation worker or vulnerability. I think they are very right. We have we have studies which brought out the situation of the sanitation worker during the COVID period, and those studies brings out that how badly they are being treated. Badly treated in the sense that they are almost forced to do this work. They have to do this work in a way. But at the same time, they are not given salaries on time. There are no safety net and safety instruments that are provided to them. Very less of them get that. That is how it has come out of the study. And the salaries are not paid on time. So this has been observed during this period. Now, the problem of sanitation worker is a serious problem. That we have banned scavenging, and yet you can see that the incidence of scavenging is quite significant at an unacceptable level. Biswara Wilson has been still working. Government denies in the court, but Biswara brings out figures of the existence of several dry latrines. I mean, one of the solutions is if you don't have a dry latrine, if you have a waterborne latrine, this problem will be solved to a greater extent. But it continues, and it continues in the public domain. It continues in the government sphere. It continues in the public domain where you have public latrines which are dry latrines. But I think the issue is that the problem continues. There are technological solutions which are proposed to resolve the issues of sanitation workers and take them out of this work and give them, rehabilitate them and bring them in a respectable occupation to self-employment, to wage employment. But the problem still exists at a very in a level which we should feel bad about it. Now, I think the Rais Mohammed is referring to a point, as well as Biswara Wilson has also mentioned that about the close connection between the sanitary occupation and the caste. They have a point that sanitary work associated with cleanliness is everywhere in the world, and we have here in India too. But what's the difference? Why the stigma associated with the occupation, the stigma associated with vulnerability as a caste exists here? The reason is obviously the norms associated with caste and caste system. The untouchable being at the lowest hierarchy of the caste system, they are denied most of the right to property, right to education, right to employment, in a better quality job. But they are expected to serve the high caste in all their occupation as a manual labor. The most important point that we should remember is that they are debarred from the job which are performed by the Brahmin, by the Kshatriya, Shudra, and the Vaishya. But they are forced to work as a manual labor in agriculture, in industry, and of course all kind of occupation which are considered by them to be inferior occupation. And sanitation work falls into one of that category. And there are other occupations also. So working as a sanitation worker is something which is not very wrong. It's one of the work. But the caste system attribute meaning to that occupation to being inferior, and a job in which being an additional deprivation, as it is Valmiki's or other scheduled castes are treated as untouchable, not to be touched, not to be seen, not to be approached. They stay in a segregated locality in the villages. They are denied several civic rights. We have Anti-Untouchability Act. So as it is, they suffer from a severe handicap and severe disabilities because of untouchability. But I think in case of sanitation workers, there is an additional deprivation. That there is an discrimination and loss of dignity because of the occupation itself. Although caste is not based on occupation, caste is based on ideology. But in case of sanitary worker, there is a special thing where the sanitation work is considered to be inferior, and the people, those who are engaged in that, suffer from an additional stigma. So I think this close connection between the caste and the problem of sanitation worker is very, very real. We ask a small question. There is a law that you should stop dry latrine, and yet the dry latrine and the sanitation work of a filthy nature continues, even by the government sphere. And here is a society which doesn't want to leave it. The society doesn't want to get involved into that work. There is a study by Amit Thorak and others that why is it that the scheme of supplying the safety latrine in the villages is not successful. The reason is untouchability, because the people think that after 3 to 4 years they will have to clean up. That has come out very, 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 very clear. So here is a society and the government. Both are people who do not feel that the doing discrimination, treating the sanitation workers much worse than others is something wrong. The reason is the caste system, which is based on a particular ideology, is responsible for that. And everybody, the higher caste are victim of that ideology, whereby you treat the untouchable, and among them Valmikis, and among them the untouchable associated with other jobs which are considered to be filthy, maybe leather, maybe other occupations as such. So this is the ideology of inequality, unequal status, treating some people inferior simply because the religion tells us, simply because the value tells us. This is at the bottom and the crux of it. That it, despite law, it doesn't go. It means the society doesn't allow. You cannot bring social change by law alone. Law only provide you protection. Whenever you face discrimination, you can go to the court. But the practice of discrimination, practice of treating Valmiki differently, not having a dignity, is in the mind and the social action of the higher caste Hindu, which because of the caste system. And we love hierarchies, we love inferiority, we have that principle of inferiority and superiority in status. That is, in my view, is at the crux of the problem. The untouchability being and discrimination being a part of our values, which still continue as the past, which is living in the present. That is at the crux of it. There are no social movement, anti-caste movement as such. We believe that Anti-Untouchability Act and Atrocity Act will take care of it. We don't start anti-caste movement. We don't feel even ashamed of practicing untouchability. We are not sensitive, because inequality is part of our ethos. That is the crux of it. I think that is why it is becoming extremely difficult to deal with the problem of sanitation workers, to deal with the problem of untouchable in general. How do we address this issue is certainly a question. How to motivate people to build up anti-caste movement, how build up the movement against untouchability by the higher caste who are responsible for them. You know, the movement by the untouchable by Valmiki will help them to a certain extent to get the right. But after all, those who practice untouchability, those who misbehave with Valmiki and sanitation worker, discriminate, it is there we have to change. And there is no movement among them. We can see whites engage in many anti-caste issue, anti-racial issue. But we don't see here a comprehensive movement. We only talk about that we are against caste, but there are no movement and program. That's what Dr. Ambedkar recently said in his, his interview release, BBC's interview, that there is merely a talk, but there is no program, there is no protection. I think this is where I will stop. That how do we address this issue at an ideological level and build up the anti-caste movement? Of course, because changing people, changing norms is so extremely difficult. Therefore, we go for a situation that just convert them, stop the dry land thing, convert them waterborne, ask the Valmiki to do the sanitation work, take an alternative occupation, because the values you are not going to change. High caste values and norms of discriminatory treatment will take God knows how many years. Therefore, we look for an alternative. So, Mohammed was saying that why we should get a dignity for this work. He's right, but that won't come through because the high caste would not change. Therefore, Biswara and others are talking for other alternatives. Please leave the job, rehabilitate them into some respectable occupation. You are not going to get respect as long as you are involved in the job. I think these are some of the issues that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Surat, for highlighting the need for rehabilitation as well as for building an anti-caste consciousness. Our last panelist for making opening remarks is Nalini Shekhar, who's from Bangalore, and she's the founder of Hasiru Daila, a social impact organization which works with waste pickers. Her passion is to restore the dignity of workers in the unorganized sector, and she's trained many waste workers into alternative ways of solid waste management. She's been working in the field for 33 years, and she has received awards for her work from the city of Bangalore also. And now I ask Nalini to make her introductory remarks, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So we just been talking about dignity of labor, then issues of Dalits even today, and the caste and sanitation workers relationship. So this is true everywhere, and I wanted to play one small video which is just 47 seconds. Can I have the video, please? Yeah. So what we are seeing here is a waste picker, former waste picker. Now she manages something called Dry Waste Collection Center in the city of Bangalore, where the informal workers have been given the task of managing the inorganic waste. So she made this film to educate her own local resident welfare association, and said by mistake that the number says 20 to 30, which actually she says 200 to 300 such masks come. And she has actually made this film and shared with all her resident welfare association, and said, please don't do this, and give it as in a very dignified way. And this got really viral in Bangalore, and ministers tweeted it and requested people to work differently. So why did this happen? So there are a lot of experiments that we have done to break this kind of a bridge. We have tried to build bridge between people who create waste and with people who manage waste. Because for us, waste pickers are as you know, it's an informal sector of workers, and they're on their own and they like to be entrepreneurs. And in the last 10 years, we have tried to work with the local government to include them in managing the dry waste, so that they have a better working condition and a little more dignity to the work that they do, and they are recognized. We did a study in 2011 which showed that the informal workers in Bangalore, we have about 35,000. We just took the contribution of just 15,000 waste pickers, and it has shown that 84 crore rupees they are saving for the local government in just collection and transport system. So when such contribution is happening, there was no recognition to them. There was no acceptance of their being there. So they are really invisible community in Bangalore. And they got an occupational ID card for the first time with the logo of the city and the signature of the commissioner. So they got completely recognized. Of course, now 2016 law says you have to give identity card to the workers. So most of the waste pickers are Dalits. A small portion of them are also tribals, and otherwise when you look at the trade, the low really small traders are all OBCs. So when you look at the caste system in this whole sector, it is only either OBC or Dalits, maximum Dalits, and some tribals. So when we started working in Bangalore in 2010, I said we knew that there will be one day where everybody wants a visual cleanliness in their neighborhood and the city. They want everybody talks about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, for example. In Indore is number one. What is number one in visible cleanliness? They have thrown all the waste pickers out of the system. They have thrown all the traders of recycling out of the system. And there are hardly any more kabadi walas in Indore. Hardly any fairy walas who are selling and buying recyclable. Hardly any people who, other than in the contained zone, there is no street vendors. That is not what we look at as an important, people's city. So there is no city without any of these people. You cannot call Indore an inclusive city. It is absolutely excluded all the poor, all the people who worked in informal sector. So we knew 10 years back this eventually will happen, and the children of waste pickers also don't want to come to this sector at that level. So we said, let's look at different ways of working with the government so that they can be included in the solid waste management system. So what they have done is to give, this is the first city where the city has made an MOU directly with waste pickers, entrepreneurs, and we are third party to just support them. And till now, in 10 years, this is the only city and still continues to be only city where such arrangement has been made by the city government. But though it sounds very good, are we in the greatest, are we in a very good place? Not yet. There's a long struggle still. And why I really chose to show this film is, one, because they're organized, because there is a certain space, And because some of the strategies we have used, we have really built bridges between citizens and waste pickers. There's a huge group of environmental activists who support waste pickers. Usually labor group and environment groups are loggerheads, because many things that is good for environment not necessarily good for the workers. That we all know for years we have been working. So there is some negotiations of what works and what doesn't work among the people, and also a lot of citizens invite them home. They've broken that caste system to a small extent. It's not much, but it's a good experiment that we can really do a large scale it up. Today we have 198 wards in the city. The city has decided all 198 wards dry waste will be managed by only waste pickers or the SAG groups, which are always traditionally engaged in solid waste management. So this is a huge thing. When a place like Indore is getting #1 rank, in fact last year the city, some of the new mayors and commissioners said we'll go Indore way. That means what? Throwing all the people out of the city. And we did not want that, and we really have struggled and fought, and today all 198 wards will be given to waste pickers, and they'll sign up an MOU directly with waste pickers, because Hasrudala is there today. I don't know whether we will be there tomorrow or not, but the workers are always there because it is their city. They are the citizen of this city, and they have a right to be here and right to work. So that is what we have tried doing it. And we have also kind of used a lot of jargons which is traditionally not used in organizing. For example, in Pune, I have organized waste pickers, have a union. But when I came to Bangalore, it was a very different. I think today's organizing workers should also change a little bit of language. We said they are silent environmentalists. We said they are entrepreneurs. These are the two languages that it goes well in Bangalore, and it has worked for us. I don't know whether it will work everywhere else, but it has worked for us. And focusing on the skill set that our workers have, rather than saying, okay, they are poor, they need job. We have said to the government, they know what is recyclable, what is not recyclable, how to sort, grade, and trade these recyclables. So, working on their strength and is what we are very conscious of the class and caste underlying with this, but we have chosen to really highlight the skills and the skill set that the city needs. It's not that they need it. And sometimes, I mean, sometime back, I think someone was saying pouring flowers to all the sanitation workers. We don't want any flowers. What we want is our salaries in time and our working conditions, which is much better. So occupational health is a big thing that many of us don't really talk about, because there is very little work that has been done in this space. Occupational health, because you handle the waste, both organic waste and inorganic waste has a different set of problems. And the sanitation workers in the city really work with the collection of organic waste, where waste pickers are managing the dry waste. Both of them have a lot of occupational health. For example, during the COVID, we worked with all our members. We have about 12,000 families are members. And what we have found is that cardiac issues are a lot in waste pickers family, but PHC doesn't give medicine for cardiac complications. So how do we work with the local health department to our workers? How do we get the dignity that they deserve as workers? We have chosen to highlight their skills. And we also work we have just started working a little bit, I would say just enumeration of sanitation workers in manual scavengers and sanitation workers still exist, whether we like it or not, in Trichy. And what we have found, it's a very initial impression, and many people who are working in that community already know that by 35-40 most of the women are widows. That means a lot of work has to be done by the single women with the children, digging up the children. So this is definitely something again related to the occupational issues, and that is what something I feel that all of us have to pay more attention and look at the occupational health of sanitation workers who pick up garbage at your street, informal workers who keep your city clean and increase the recyclability of the material. We should look at the sanitation workers still who go under to clean the drains. So it's important that every one of us, one of them have been addressed in order to address their well-being and the health challenges. The second level that we feel is still children don't have an access to education. If they do, very limited support from home. They're all mostly first generation learners. Even in a city like Bangalore, we have so many children first generation learners. So these are some of the things that we would like to continue to work, and I'm hoping that with the discussion we have had on dignity of labor, connection to caste, and looking at their own well-being in terms of occupational health and also children education, we can discuss a few more minutes on what all this mean to everybody who is listening to us and participating and being part of this whole discussion. So I would like to stop there, and then if there is any questions, of course we can go ahead and discuss. Thank you.
So thank you, Nalini. I think you've raised some really important issues, and these issues, I think at least 2 or 3 of them. One is the gender aspect of the whole thing, how it pans out as far as this class of workers is concerned, and whether, you know, even the caste system, it works differently for men and differently for women. This is an issue that I think we need to also flag. The second thing that I found also quite interesting was the fact, and there's only one question which I can see which is also linked to this, is the fact that for me, as far as sanitation workers are concerned, it's not only the caste system, but it's also some way a discrimination against manual work. The entire sort of that side with which you see manual work is something that I want to also flag. So that also raises the issue of the relationship between caste and class and occupational segmentation that is taking place. So that's the other thing. And the third one is about skills. I mean, you know, the whole way in which skills and unskilled is divided is really a very biased thing in favor of mental labor, which again brings about the whole question of the dignity of manual labor. So these are 3 or 4 things that I think should be discussed further. One of the questions that was raised is that is the indignity of work a result of overpopulation? And then there's one more question here saying a lot of solutions related to waste are conceived keeping city centers in mind, except for SBNs, which for most part has concentrated on open defecation as an issue and not solid waste management. Swachh Bharat mission. Is waste not a big issue at the village level? And if it is, do you think that Safai Karamcharis appointed at the villages are anywhere at par with the municipal workers? So I think this is quite an important question, that how sanitation workers outside the metros are organized and seen. So maybe Biswara and Nalini and Luis and Professor Thorat could also raise some can make some points about that and answer some of these questions. But I think really the question of dignity is of course linked to caste and ideology. Nobody can dispute that. But it's also linked to the entire hatred for workers per se. We come to a system where workers are hated. In that, Dalit workers are hated more than other workers. So how do we sort of look at that? And there's a third question: where do sanitation workers come in the proposed labor codes? How will the change in labor laws impact sanitation workers? This is the fourth question that I have for you. Maybe we'll take a round of responses, and if there are any more questions after that. Yes. Do we start with Biswara?
See, I was talking about the labor laws. That is actually because particular states, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh, they have started increasing that, not that, and they also minimum wages act is also there. They said that this we cannot implement now. So that in that drop I mentioned that. And second is, and Uttar Pradesh particularly, despite of the International Labour Organization intervention to state that this cannot be done, they have introduced that very recently and it is got passed. So they are not even listening to any international agencies, and they are not listening to the people also. And that kind of a arrogant situation when the state authorities they are coming. So what is the next role of the movements like us and the institutions and the ActionAid Association? Like that we have to make a strategy. So that we can't just allow the, because of the pandemic situation, you can exploit the people like this. That is not done. So that kind of a very clear message we have to tell, how we can organize and the which platform we are all joining, and how we can address, and how can we say that Mr. Adityanath, that this is not just your home business to do the whatever you like, and without protecting the rights of the particularly the Safai Karmacharis and the marginalized and the labor, there is no point of running the government. So this we have to tell very clear.
So there's another question for you actually, which says, dear sir, can you please talk a few minutes on sewer crop and the reasons why loans are being difficult to obtain for manual scavengers?
See, the sewer croc is then a machine which is invented by the Ajanta Technologies and the Sanitar from the Bangalore. They invested their own money, and with there are also few people from the community who are the well-wishers together, they developed. And that is costing almost like a 47 lakhs along with the sewer croc and the suction big machine and the tanker. This is the one set. If any one section in the municipality, if they have this, we no need to send any human being inside. But no municipality is not ready to buy that. They are saying that come with some private parties, we will hire those things. Which means what? They want to give the contracts to some individuals or the companies. No Safai Karmachari can afford to buy the 47 lakhs of the machine. And they made their own small groups like a Safai Karmachari enterprises. They applied for the National Safai Karmacharis Finance and Development Corporation. They are also not willing to give. They are saying that 15 lakhs to 25 lakhs maximum we can give, not more than that. So which means what? Either the central government or the state governments are not willing to buy the machines which can actually operate without human being to enter into the sewer line and septic tank. So there it got end, and in Hyderabad Metro Water and Sewage Board, they have hired that for the purpose, but they have not taken any kind of a direct involvement or the purchasing the machine, or they can provide a kind of a grant or something. And the new economic, new Swachh Bharat, the plus and all they are doing across the country, but they are not investing a money on the sanitation. They are investing only construction of the toilets and the persons who give the campaign for the toilet construction because they want their volunteers' pockets to be filled very well. But they are not concerned about the people who are dying. Even this pandemic situation now, 34 people died recently in the sewage and the septic tank. But the government is not talking even a single word about that.
Professor Thorat, would you like to say something about the labor codes and the sanitation workers?
Yeah, the labor laws aspect has been mentioned by Biswara Wilson. As far as the caste aspect is concerned, we have Prevention of Atrocity Act, 1989, and then we have Protection of Civil Rights Act, which was earlier Untouchability Offence Act of 1955. Now, under that, any discrimination of sanitation worker as a untouchable, any discrimination, social discrimination that Rais Mohammed talked about, that they are not allowed inside the office, and obviously there is a lot of untouchability with respect to the sanitation workers. So that law provides certain safeguards that those who feel that they are discriminated, they can go to the court of law, register the case, and get the dispute. So that law provides. Even after Prevention of Atrocity Act also provides protection. So, but there are several aspects of the sanitation worker related to discrimination. I do not know whether they are fully covered in the Prevention of Atrocity Act or even Protection of Civil Rights Act. So there is a protection, but in practice it doesn't work. I think the Valmikis are the section of a society which has the worst kind of discrimination as a result of they being untouchable, but their occupation is being considered as a filthy and polluting and impure. That is an additional discrimination that they face. So this is what I will respond. There was another question. I don't remember now. Can you?
Regarding the sanitation workers outside the metro cities, in the villages, their situation.
Their situation is very bad. You have to study the situation in Gujarat. There are public toilets. They are open. They are only covered from the fourth side by the wall, and the worst type of the work that is involved there, cleaning the seat, and no attempt to make a waterborne toilet. The reason roots lies, I tell you what, the story that Biswara has said, that there is one or another excuse for bringing in technology which will take out the sanitation workers from that work. There is an excuse of one or other type. The reason is the attitude of the government employees and the government itself. They don't care it. There are Valmiki, there are sanitation workers who in any case will do it. What's the harm? Otherwise, we have removed several of those practices by bringing in technology. Why can't we do this? But it's a question of priority. And in our psychology, we believe in caste system and we don't mind it. We don't mind the Valmikis being carrying on this kind of a work. So I think that is the problem. It's an ideological problem. It's the problem of discriminatory attitude, insensitivity. That is at the root of it. And it's very, very difficult to change. Therefore, technological alternative is important. Replacement and rehabilitation of the sanitation worker in alternative job is important. I agree with Rais Mohammed, but he is backing on a very difficult path. To change the value and attitude of the caste is very, very difficult. We are all for dignity. And there is a there is a law, Anti-Untouchability Act law, which provides a protection. But how do you change the caste, high caste people? So I think the alternatives which Biswara has suggested, bring the technology, try to rehabilitate them to alternative occupation, have a sufficient amount of fund and skill and vocational training for the children of these people so that they will get an alternative job. That is the quickest way. Weakest way is the same 10, 15 years, 20 years. But to change the attitude and demand dignity, we should continue to demand dignity. We should use the Untouchability Offence Act. But it has its limitation. Untouchability Offence Act has not succeeded. You know how many cases during this period, 2014 and 2018, maximum number of cases of untouchability, particularly involving women. That is the attitude of our fraternity, our sense that even the most difficult time, our feeling of caste discrimination doesn't wither away, doesn't go. It come out. In fact, it's come out. It is being reiterated and coming out with a lot of force. So I think we'll have to find out the ways that Biswara is working and other alternatives.
So there are a lot of questions coming in now. So actually, there's a lot of questions for raise. So I'll take two questions together, and also for Biswara, and maybe Nalini can comment on the other question also. But first, I'll take the two questions for Biswara and raise. One question is regarding the attitude and the stance of the RSS towards the sanitation workers, and has there been any improvement in their conditions under the BJP as compared to the Congress? That's one question. What is the stance of the RSS as compared to the Congress? And a related question to that is specifically for Biswara Wilson. What is the current social political scenario of various, and also for Mr. Rees, of various Dalit movements in relation to manual scavenging? So what they're asking is about three trends: the RSS, the Congress, and the Dalit movements regarding manual scavenging. And with that, I mean, Biswara, you have a lot of questions. So, maybe you deal with these in 2 minutes each, because there's a lot of questions coming in, and then I'll, Rees, you have a short time to deal with them, and then I'll come back to the technology question that has been raised. Yeah.
The first is about the technology, which Professor Thorat has dealt very well. Without the technology, bringing the dignity.
No, Biswara, there's another question regarding technology in the chat box, which we'll take up later. Can you take up the political question first?
Yes. That RSS and their ideology is detrimental to the actually to any movement, because they say that you are born this is a good life, and they started praising. And like whether it is a Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, he coming and washing the feet of the people. So that all which glorifies actually the people who are cleaning. See, they are not saying that why we should make another human being to clean other shit in this country. That is the message the Prime Minister is supposed to give. Instead of that, Prime Minister himself is coming and washing. And before that, he said that Valmikis are cleaning the human excreta because they are getting some sort of spiritual experience. So I felt that when he said when he was a chief minister. So when I felt that 10 years after became a prime minister, he might have changed. So my understanding here is the ideology of RSS is not allowing the people to think beyond the glorifying the things which we have already prohibited. The manual scavenging is prohibited by the law. We are not here to again glorify that. We are here to implement the strict law to eradicate that. That is not happening. So their intervention and their actually is a detrimental for the movement. And second, another thing is one ideology they are now bringing. We are all cleaning during the Swachh Bharat and after the Swachh Bharat. In India, everybody taking one, it became like a big style. So taking the broom and coming to the street and cleaning 1 minute and stating that we are all cleaning. So it is not true. There are the cleaning people are very specific, and they are with the caste and the patriarchy, hierarchy, class, everything is there. So you can't say that we are all cleaning in this country. So and another Congress.
You have to be short. You have to be short.
The BJP, and between that is Congress is brought the law but not implemented. BJP is not even respecting the law. They want to go back and say that certain work we have to make it is justifiable. That is a very danger, and there is a question also on that. They want to make the amendments for the sewage cleaning, all those things.
Yes.
Sewage cleaning must be prohibited. You cannot play the games or the politics with the life of the citizens of this country, whoever, whatever caste they belong. Of course, the sewage and septic tank cleaner who lost the life belongs to the scheduled caste. So government must be careful when handling this. They cannot justify, they cannot allow any human being entering into the silver line and septic tank. There is no other question, there is no other argument or dialogue is required in any independent country.
Yeah, please raise your quick remarks on this. The question was addressed to you. So
I will put it in whether Congress or RSS or a BJP, I would just put this in context. Actually, in 16th century, the water closet was introduced in the world, in the European countries, France and other countries, and London, they followed. But in India, dry littering was promoted until 1990s. We need Biswara Wilson kind of a person from the community to come and say that ban this manual scavenging. So all these years it was Congress. And in India, when people were asking about the labor, in India as the only country, sanitation has been seen as a social work than as a service to the nation, not as a labor. Let it be from the, for example, in the municipal record, it's a municipal record which says that sanitation, the municipality, local municipality should collect scavenger tax, okay? So the scavengers were recruited, the scavenger who were carrying the shit on their forehead, on the head, were recruited by the government until the ban of the manual scavenging, So Congress and BJP, now you decide what it is. And the BJP, they glorify. So I also want to clarify that when I say that self-respect of a sanitation worker, I completely differentiate from the Narendra Modi's cleaning the food. Because that is, again, he's making that as a service. Treat him as a labor, not like as a service to the nation. So in India, scavenging has been seen as a service. It has to be removed and it has to be given a labor, first of all. In India, sanitation work does not have a law. Again and again, I'm repeating to the audience also, those who are asking questions, sanitation worker does not have a separate law. Even they do not have, they have a law saying that they are government staff, the fourth class employee or group 4 employee, but they will be under the local supervisor. Now, let us take examples in Tamil Nadu, for example. In this COVID, there are municipal panchayat presidents who got elected and she's not allowed to sit on a chair. And how can you expect a villager, the sanitation scavenger, being ruled with a caste into as a supervisor? So it is not going to happen. So the problem with the scavenging and sanitation issue in India is, it is a government issue. It is a directly government promoting the caste. I spoke to Biswara Anna long back. When people talk about the machinery introducing, why should you talk to us, machinery? Do you talk to us when you introduce? We are saying that remove this law. Don't come to us and ask, you have IITians. What are they doing there? You don't give us IIT professors. You don't ask Biswara to come as an IIT professor and felicitate him and say them you fund him, let him do a research. You don't do that. You come and ask us, we'll introduce machinery. See, machinery is not a solution for caste. Our problem, like scavenging, Biswara Anna's problem and all the Dalit movement problem here is caste. Machinery will not remove the caste. And Thorat long back, he wrote what the city has done with the housing structure. It reproduces caste. Our self-respect lies when until we remove caste. So caste is central for us. It is that reason Ambedkar said in the last line, I denounce Hinduism and I will not be as a Hindu because I will never die as a Hindu. I will embrace Buddhism, he went. So in short, I would say, the day when you consider manual scavenger, that is a Dalit, as an insider of a state, in most Indian states, scavengers, that is sanitation workers like Valmiki sir was telling, considered as a non-natives, migrants. You go to Punjab, you go to Himachal Pradesh, you go to West Bengal, you go to Tamil Nadu, you go to Kerala. Everywhere they are considered as migrants, and they've been staying there for long years. So you don't consider them as a native. You keep away from the village. You don't enter. You don't build toilets. You don't build toilets into the temple. You don't allow Dalits also into the temple. You don't allow Silpas into the temple. You bring purity, pollution, ideology, and that is the crux of the caste. The caste solely rests on the purity, pollution, ideology. It is here in my research, I throw the earlier study, I don't throw, sorry, my words. I'm saying that it is not hierarchical. Caste is just purity pollution inside the temple and outside the temple. Inside the temple, anybody can go, somebody can become a Brahmin, but outside Dalits are outside. Let it be a
have to be shorter.
So in short, I would say, yeah. So in short, I would say it is an ideological issue and it is about religious issue until you leave Hinduism and denounce Hinduism, because Hinduism is not going to reform caste. That is Ambedkar said that. So I don't think anywhere they did it. And even now you find continuous regular videos saying that, no, we promote caste. We promote caste. Hindus, Brahmins, all saying, judge was telling caste is a super good structure. So in that context, a self-respect of a scavenger, self-respect of a Dalit lies when he denounces Hinduism. That is the crux of it. It's just a social struggle. It is not a political struggle. Ambedkar clearly said social should precede the political. So there I stop my presentation.
Yeah. So actually, there's one specific question on technology where Mr. Wilson, what do you think about using Bandicoot Robo in Kerala, and what do you think about these kind of technological interventions? So Biswara, this asked to you, but I'll also ask Nalini to comment on it, as she was also talking about skills and alternatives and all this. Yeah. Nalini, you want to go first, then maybe Biswara can go after that.
Thank
and
you.
You can take the other questions also if you have something.
Yes, yes. So I'm specifically talking about the sanitation workers as in solid waste management workers, and definitely introducing better working conditions and better recognition to them, and organizing. Let me tell you, without organizing, nothing can happen. I feel that somebody has written whether heterogeneity of manual scavenging will change. We are seeing that when in Bangalore, all large apartments are supposed to have STPs. Okay, so the people who come to clean up the STP or manage the STP are they are shown as professional people with dignity, with the t-shirts and uniform and all the machines that they come. We are seeing that there's a class change. Recently, about a year and a half, there was a death of a person who didn't get in. He did not use all the procedures that is required to clean the septic tank. So we found him educated. He was a Brahmin. He was, done his masters. So I don't know why he was in there. We got to know about him only after his death. We don't know why he got into it. But definitely we see that when you professionalize the place, the work itself, when you professionalize, see all the, nowadays you are getting all these small, sweeping machines. Why can't we train our own Paura Karmika, that's what we call in Bangalore? Why can't we have the sanitation worker learn it and move ahead than going and sweeping every day on the street? It is not a rocket science that they can do. But once you introduce technology, other castes are coming, upper castes are coming. Instead of replacing them, can we look at skill building? But one thing is that when you better the condition of work, other people are definitely coming up. And when you look at the whole the difference between the workers, sanitation, solid waste management workers in cities and in the villages, the discrimination is way higher than what you see in larger cities for sure. So I think again I'm going back to my point of bettering the occupational health, bettering the working condition, and regular payment and dignity. But for all these to achieve, unless you organize the workers on the street, it's not going to happen. And organizing has become very limited. When I started working in 90s, late 80s actually, organizing was very, very strong on the ground, and we don't see that anymore. Unless you organize, we will not be able to break this system, be it rural or urban.
So, Professor Thorat, there's a question for you on the plight of Dalit women, the status of Dalit women today.
The problem of Dalit women is a very serious problem. I said that whichever indicator you take income per capita, you take literacy, you take malnutrition indicator like mortality rate, proportion of anemia, or the children, they rank at the lowest of the any section, male or female. As a matter of fact, I think only with respect to certain indicators that the tribal woman will be worse than that of a Dalit woman. But broadly, for all the indicators, the Dalit women are in a worse of the situation. Because the reason is that they suffered from, as the Dalit feminist theories would argue, that they suffered not only from economic discrimination, but they also suffered from caste discrimination. Um, and beside the gender aspect of it, that they are not free from the gender discrimination within the society. So I think this triple exploitation almost pushed them to the wall, and therefore their economic and social situation is very, very bad.
Okay, Reis, there's a question about the role of space in reproducing caste and the location of toilets in traditional Indian households that reproduce untouchabilities. Have you or anybody else studied urban planning with regard to caste? Can you give a very short answer, please?
Yeah, Puneet, JBIM, you know that nobody has studied space from a caste angle. Indian architectures bring this Manusmriti's Hindu social structure into their house, like which side you have to build a house, which side you have to build a toilet. So they haven't broken that structure, and they follow it. The government, state government, the central state, everybody follows. For example, when they built this Delhi metro, they did not allow toilets into the Delhi metro. Even now, Delhi metro toilets would be outside the metro's main station, and that too became after a plea. So that is one. And the other one is to put it, see, about the women's issue, if I may just say in very short. So one example about women is, see, this is an experience which I had in my sanitation movement, self-respect movement. There is a village, you know that 1970s onwards, the government, state government gave many free houses, and many Dalits got these free houses and they don't have toilets. So until now, they were going for open defecation. And you know that government promotes open defecation. Many social scientists also promote open defecation. So open defecation, and Dalit women and men were using open defecation. But due to this development, now in my Nilgiri place, they started removing all the trees and bushes, and now it is plain sight. So now women are asking, give me the toilet. And I went for an open letter, and men are saying, see, toilet I can get in a second, but we need land. So we need a land, there is a disputed land. We have to fight for the land first and then go for the toilet. But women are saying, toilet is a very sacred for us, very important for us, and we feel very insecure going to the toilet, and they don't discuss with this men. So the problem, this is the simple, on the site you can see the difference between men and Dalit women situation on the ground. Then the last one which I want to say is about this technology. See, one more thing is, I did my postdoc on scavenging, and there are 2 books which are on the pipeline. So right now what I'm planning to do is, I'm planning to buy a sanitation septic tank cleaning sewage truck, and I'm planning to run it. The reason is, the many outsiders are coming and making business. You go to the toilet, Dalits won't own the toilet. They won't take the contract of a toilet. My father carried the drainage open, this bucket full of shit on their head. And now they don't carry now. Now there is a technology. But people say, Dalits themselves say, we don't want to get into the filthy job. We want to leave that. So I'm saying that it is a job. You have better contact than anybody else, and you can make money out of it. So therefore, the dignity of labor, also the self-respect also has to be seen. How Dalits themselves are looking at this work. They see this is a filthy work. They have to change this approach. Only then there can be some kind of a reform in this labor.
Thank you, Reis. I think that we've had a very good session. A lot of questions were raised, and the panelists gave very interesting answers to those questions. So with that, I'd like to thank ActionAid and all the panelists for making such a lively session, and all the participants also, and hand it over back to Katie. Katie, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Prasad, and thank you for facilitating an extremely complex discussion. It's been extremely illuminating for most of us, I'm sure, we are glad that we've managed to get all of you on board for this webinar this evening, and thank each one of you for taking time off from your schedules and joining us for this webinar. On behalf of ActionAid, the Center for Informal Sector and Labor Studies, and on behalf of Rosa Luxemberg Stiftung-South Asia, big thanks to all of you, and a special thanks to you, Professor Archana Prasad. I do want to take this opportunity to also share with you that the Urban Action School, which is one of the things that we do offer, this year is on cooperatives and decent work, which is in tune with trying to promote alternative solutions for establishing a better livelihood for informal workers. Stay tuned for more details from our side. We thank each one of you participants and the panelists for coming on board this evening. Thank you very much.